All right, welcome back into the RP show here on a Thursday. Rod is on the road traveling to Toronto, so I am in the big chair and pleased to welcome in our next guest, Avry Lewis-Mcdougall. Man, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, Darren. How you doing, buddy? How are things?
I'm doing really good. Yeah, things are great, man. Been a hot minute here. Um, how are you, man? What's been going on with you? Look, I look at your bio, like, you do the show, the hockey news, the Stingers. You got a lot going on, man. Catch me up.
Yeah, man. The cup final's over, but the work doesn't stop. You go from end of season availabilities, and you go into, you guys mentioned before the break, the Elks Owls game, and then this weekend the Stingers play. Being a true sports journalist, when hockey ends, it's into football, into basketball all summer long.
What's number one for you? What's your number one?
I would say number one, it is covering the Oilers, but I do love covering basketball in the city because Edmonton's basketball heritage is so rich, be it, the CEBL, Nate, the Golden Bears, the Pandas. I love making sure that basketball coverage is adequate in Edmonton, much like hockey coverage, Darren.
Man, that's when you came on my radar was covering the Golden Bears and the Pandas. My love for university sports and, mostly in Saskatoon covering the U of S Huskies and the great rivalries they
Mhm.
had with the Golden Bears, especially in hockey and obviously now in the Canada West. We know with the Golden Bears football program, I think has taken a massive step forward in the last, you know, 5 or 6 years. It's been a really, really fun to watch. So that's where I feel like we connect a little bit. But on this Oiler thing, man, I don't know where we're at because I feel like the community is still in mourning, um,
Mhm.
but also you just the blows don't stop coming, man. This LTIR thing with the Vander Kane coming down, shortly after losing the cup, it's just salt in the wound. Um, what's going on in Edmonton today? How are people feeling?
People right now, I think there's a sentiment of, man, this team was right there once again, 2 years in a row to go to the Cup final and lose the exact same team. It is tough, but being in the room for the availabilities with guys like Evan Bouchard, Leon Draisaitl, Corey Perry, these are guys who say, you know what, yeah, we did lose again, but we want to stay in Edmonton and we want to run it back one more time because we know this team can get better and this team can find a way to overcome that barrier coming into next season.
This team is. You're right, and I talked about that this week. I mean, I could easily see Edmonton right back in this situation. They're one of the favorites already. I mean, it's early to be right back in the cup again next year, but Oiler fans they want change, right? Because
Mhm.
you get to Game 6, but you don't win, and as the series drew on, it ended up not being as close, especially obviously games, 5 and 6, and for a time in the first period of Game 4. But this team is really good. Like, everybody wants to crap on the goaltending, and maybe the goaltending needs to change. They obviously weren't good enough. When you have Sergei Bobrovsky on the other side, who's going to go to the Hall of Fame and was unbelievable. Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard, yeah, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't great. The numbers aren't good, but they got you to Game 6 of a Cup final. They got you to Game 7 last year. Stuart Skinner did of the Stanley Cup final. The shutouts that he put up when he was really good at times. Um, and if you're going to go out and get another goalie, it may be free agency, maybe via trade, maybe you got to pay somebody, then that's money you can't spend somewhere else. And they're also talking about the age of the Oilers, and they've got to get younger. And maybe we need to
Mhm.
spend more money and get more depth. Look at all the depth that the Panthers have. And there's an extension kicking in for Draisaitl, and Bouchard makes more money, and then guys need to make more money. Um, it is it is hard to fix all the issues. Um, what's the number one issue that the Oilers need to address this offseason?
Whew, that's a really good question, Darren. So I do think this team needs to go and address goaltending. Like I'm a big Stuart Skinner guy. I've always been a big Stuart Skinner guy since he came into the league. But I do think next year you need to go in and get another goaltender that can support Bears and Calvin Pickard. So I do see his team. My guy, my target is Alex Lyon. That's the guy I want to go in, get Alex Lyon, who is among the 500 goalie tenders in Detroit, or go get Jake Allen out of New Jersey. but I feel that you can't run it back to get Pickard and Skinner again. But I do think Stuart Skinner is an NHL netminder. He's shown before, yes, his game has been up and down, but in big games, he has the ability to get the wins. I do think that you got to get him a true 1B goaltender next year, be it a Jake Allen or an Alex Lyon in my mind.
The name that popped up was Calgary's Dan Vladar. Are you hearing much about that? And is Dan Vladar
Hmm.
somebody that Oiler fans would accept as a starting goaltender? Because, he's been really good in Calgary at times, but this is clearly Dustin Wolf's Calgary Flames moving forward. Dan Vladar is an interesting name, and it would kind of go along, like it wouldn't be unprecedented. Mike Smith from Calgary to Edmonton not that long ago, when they went on a bit of a run. Um, that's a name that's jumped up that I've seen a little bit.
Interesting. I've not heard Dan Vladar. I've heard, of course, John Gibson. He's come up quite a bit. Of course, people would still love to see a return of Cam Talbot to Edmonton, but I have not heard Dan Vladar. And I don't know if he fits in with Stuart Skinner. I'm not sure he's going to be the best guy to be that kind of goaltender. So I would think more likely your names are a John Gibson or an Alex Lyon. But John Gibson, he's been a guy who has popped up over the past few months. Of course, the big concerns have been, can he stay healthy? But Dan Vladar, that's an interesting one. I've not heard Dan Vladar in Edmonton yet, Darren.
And John Gibson's a name that seems to pop up every year for teams. He was popping up now for Edmonton. He popped up as an option for the Leafs, back, I think, back in the Jack Campbell days. Um,
Hmm.
there was his name's popped up quite a bit. You mentioned Evan Bouchard, and it's funny. Evan Bouchard's an interesting case for me, and I'm curious your thoughts on where you're at with him. The Oiler fans are at with him. I talked to some really diehard fans, and during the year they're really down on Evan Bouchard, and Bouchard's not the guy, and we got to move on from Evan Bouchard. And then, all he does is put up points in the playoffs and is really good. And they're not compared. He's spoken in the same sentence as Bobby Orr and Paul Coffey based on the numbers he's putting up. He's putting up elite level numbers. And then when they lose the Stanley Cup final, well, his defensive play is not great, and now they think we got to move on from Evan Bouchard. I think they're not moving on from Evan Bouchard. They can't, can they?
No, and management likes Evan Bouchard, and I'm a big Bouchard guy. I believe in him and what he's done on the back end. At 25 years old, he is a D-man that's going to develop more and more. His game is not even close yet to being fully there yet. He's a right-shot D-man who, all-time in playoff points, Darren, is second all-time behind Bobby Orr in points per game in the postseason. Second all-time! The NHL has been around for over 100 years, and only one other player in the postseason for a D-man has more points per game than him. You do not trade Evan Bouchard because if you deal him, okay, then who's going to fill in what he brings to your roster? Offensively and defensively, he's getting better. I mean, yes, there have been moments here and there where he's had tough games, but looking at the metrics, he has been one of the better D-men in both ends of the ice for Edmonton. So moving on for Evan Bouchard would be a very, very dumb decision.
It would be a very dumb decision. Um, I agree. I mean, he provides something that they need, and the identity of this Oilers team is offense. And yes, it dried up a little bit in the final two games of this series, and they couldn't find it. But um, no, Evan Bouchard, I think he's a staple. He's going to be there moving forward. I saw you mention Corey Perry, um, declaring his intention to return. He was such a big piece of this team moving forward. And I think, to be honest, Corey Perry's becoming more and more likable by the day, even though he's a bit of an agitator. And let's call him what he is. He's a shit disturber a bit. But Evander Kane has been going the other way in terms of, and I'm curious if Oiler fans are ready to move on because, I've heard that Evander Kane could be somebody the Oilers could use as a trade chip, try and free up some cap space, somebody they move on from in this offseason.
Yeah, I've heard the Evander Kane era in Edmonton might be coming to an end. Now, granted, when Evander Kane returned this postseason, he played great against Dallas. You saw moments against Dallas and against Vegas where he looked brilliant, but this Cup final was not Evander Kane's best, and I've heard the same thing that, they probably will try to move on, trade him somewhere to who, I'm not sure who yet, but it looks like a rebuilding team might be interested in Evander Kane going forward for next season. And when it comes to Corey Perry, he's someone who has, is a guy, a former scoring champion, former MVP, but he is someone who has accepted, I'm not that guy that I was in, 2011, 2012 anymore. I'm going to take a role, I'm going to accept the role of being that third line, fourth line guy, or at times spot up in the first line once in a while and accept my role and be a good team player. And look at Corey Perry last year, 19 goals, 10 goals in the postseason. He's been a true team player on that roster and done what's asked of him, no matter what it has been this year, Darren.
Yeah, no, he really was. The text line's open 902-518-3033. John in St. Albert, Alberta writes in. He asks, Avery, what are your thoughts on the Oilers being investigated for long-term injured reserve and the game tonight in Red Deer, Calgary versus Edmonton, CEBL? So first, long-term injured reserve and the Evander Kane
Yes.
situation.
I'm gonna say first of all, it's a little bit weird because why now? The season's over. Why are we investigating this now? I just think it's kind of weird, and I'm not a conspiracy guy. I really am not. But for the league to now be diving into the LTIR with Vander Kane now, other teams have used it to their benefit. It just looks optically very strange, and league priorities are in the wrong place. If now you're gonna look at the Oilers for how they use LTIR with Vander Kane, to me it doesn't make much sense right now.
And how about the CEBL game tonight, Calgary and
All
Edmonton
right.
in Red Deer? That should be fun.
Yeah. The first CBL game ever to be played in Red Deer, first one out in Alberta outside of either the two main cities. It's great to see, the CBL trying different things again. We had the outdoor game in Montreal that unfortunately didn't get finished, but we're seeing the basketball love continue throughout Alberta. And for Edmonton, it's a big thing, finish his road trip on track with the win. They're holding down the last playoff spot in the Western Division. And for the Stingers team, it's imperative to keep pace with Calgary, with Winnipeg in those Western Division standings because I think for Edmonton right now, you want to, yes, get a play-in spot, but I think for Edmonton, it's going to be big to hopefully get a play-in spot, hopefully try to find a way to turn things around and host a playoff game. It's going to be tough the way that Calgary's been playing, the way Vancouver's been playing. But if you find a way to keep the wins going, Edmonton should be in a good spot come the postseason here in the CBL, Darren.
Love it. Following the NBA final, I assume. Thoughts on
Yes.
the game tonight?
You know what? Seeing the news on Tyrese Halliburton, that's going to be tough. Hearing about his injury, it's going to be a tough series. But I do still think this one goes seven. For me, I'm a basketball lifer. I'm a hardcore guy, so I've been having so much fun with this series, back and forth between OKC and Indiana. But I do think in the end, you're going to see the OKC Thunder find a way to win this series. SGA gets his first championship and finish off that great MVP season. And I think the Thunder are going to be a force for a few more years to come. And I would be very scared in the Western Conference to see what's going to happen going forward because Mark Daniels' team is a well polished machine, and you're getting great play from SGA, from Chet, from Lou Dort. That's a team that the Western Conference should be afraid of for the next few years, in my mind, Darren.
They're young and they're skilled. And if they can find a way to keep this group together, you're right. SGA, the Canadian MVP, if they win if they win an NBA championship, is he the best Canadian ever already?
I don't know about ever already, but he's absolutely, to me, he's in the top 10 for sure. He's absolutely barred down in the top 10 for sure. Maybe top 5. I don't know about one just yet, but he's already in the all-time greats, I do think, for Canadian NBA players.
Love it. Love it. Let's go to the football game tonight. Edmonton at or home to Montreal. Corey, how much time do we have left in this segment? I want to make sure we get this in here. Um, the Elks coming off the bye week in week 2. Montreal 2-0. I think the Owls are the best team in the Canadian Football League. So, what is the scouting report on Edmonton coming out of the bye as they get set for their second game here in week 3?
I think the big thing is for Edmonton, they need to find a way to get some first downs, finish off drives, and not leave points on the table. We saw way too often against BC. They left points on the table. They left chances to make that a ball game. They squandered it away. And you're going to want to see a tough rushing attack from Javon Leake, from Justin Rankin, two guys who can gash a defense at will. And I want to see, once again, Mark Killam let Trey Ford throw the ball a little more. I know we saw Trey Young got it. Trey Ford, we saw Trey Ford throw the ball up a lot against BC. But I want to see, that ability from Trey to throw the ball against Montreal. But one thing about Trey is that we know he can extend the play with his legs more and more. He's so dynamic. I think for the defensive side of the ball for Edmonton, they got to get sacks. They got to get to the Alexander. They got to find a way to pressure him. And we know Davis Alexander is tough to beat. He is a tough guy to beat on a quarterback. So got to find a way to get to him, get the rushing attack going early. Edmonton should be okay in a rainy ball game.
I'm really looking forward to this one. Trey Ford for me. This feels like this is finally Trey Ford's team. I'm not hearing a
Yes.
lot of Cody Fajardo might get some extra reps or Cody Fajardo this. And, with McLeod Bethel Thompson or whoever they had before, there was always that controversy. Is that, am I reading this right? This feels like Trey Ford's team.
1,000%. You look at the marketing, you look at the ad campaigns, even before the season began, it was all about Trey Ford, him under center, him being the franchise quarterback. You talk to anyone in the organization, be it Chris Morris, Mark Killam, Ed Hervey, they believe in what Trey Ford can do. And this team has put fully behind their support for Trey Ford to be QB1. And he deserves it. He deserves that leash to be your franchise quarterback for not just this year, but for the next few seasons down the line.
This Edmonton team, I expect, I'm really excited for this game. Now it's tough because the market's had such tough starts to the year, right? They started 0-7, 0-9, 0-3 going back
Mhm.
3 years ago. 0-1 out of the gate. They've got Montreal, got to follow it up by playing Winnipeg, with a fan base that's starting to come back. They had a great finish last year, put a run, came close. A team that I can expect to continue to take steps forward. How's the fan base been around this team and Mark Killam and this new version of the Edmonton Elks?
You're seeing the fans start to come back to Commonwealth more often now because last year you saw it with the belief. You saw the fans coming back slowly when they saw the play of Trey Ford. That's been, I think, one of the biggest drivers of getting fans back to the building is, hey, believing in this franchise quarterback. And a lot of fans believe in the messaging of Mark Killam in terms of what he's going to do to return this team to glory. And you bring back guys like Ed Hervey, who fans loved. You bring in Chris Morris, who shared his vision of what it's going to take for his team to get Pat back to success. And when Ed Hervey tells people that hey, my goal is to win Grey Cups again, people want to listen to him because he knows what it takes to win a Grey Cup as a GM, as a player. He knows success, so people believe in him and what he's going to see, and the fans believe it. The fans saw the progress last year. The fans are seeing it when it comes to the acquisitions they made this year. So fans are going to be behind this team more so than they ever were, I believe, in say 2021 or 2022, or even 2023.
Gonna rain tonight. We know that. It's supposed to rain tonight in Edmonton. Just pulled up the forecast. 15 degrees, rain, a little bit of wind. Look, just a 1.5 millimeters of rain, but there is a 90% chance of rain throughout this game. Maybe the sun peeking out uh, in the third or fourth quarter, about 9 o'clock. That's not so bad. 15, light shower. I hope that doesn't keep people away, man. It should be fun. Anything else on your mind here? We're inside a minute or inside 30 seconds here.
I would just say, my goal with the Elks is hopefully one day, right now the Upper Bowl of Commonwealth is closed. One day, I want to see a game this year where the Elks are winning and we get a full Commonwealth Stadium capacity with both bowls open. That would be great.
Avery, appreciate this, man. I thought we had a few more seconds, but all good. Avry Lewis-Mcdougall joining us here. Back after this on the